So I will start to read. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, members of the public who wish to watch and listen to the meeting may do so in the following manner. WCTV, Channel 9, Comcast Xfinity, or Channel 37, Verizon Fios, and live stream at wctv.org. The meeting of the Wilmington Economic Development Committee is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members or public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. Members of the public who would like to listen to the meeting while in progress may do so via telephone by dialing 646-558-8656 and entering the meeting ID 868-4455-5098. Then press pound and press pound again at the next voice prompt. Members of the public attending this meeting virtually will be allowed to make comments if they wish to do so during the portion of the meeting designated for public comment. By following the steps previously noted, then press *9 on their telephone keypad. This will notify the meeting host that the caller wishes to speak. All callers using that feature will be placed into queue in the order that they entered the prompt. In the event that, despite our best efforts, we are not able to provide real-time access, we will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as we are able. I probably should have called the meeting to order at 6:03 because it took me two minutes to read that. But let's consider the meeting called to order. With that being read, the first agenda item is the approval of minutes from July 14th, 2020. I sent the minutes out to you all yesterday. They are a draft that I sent to you by email. I would ask you if there are any edits or revisions that anyone would like to make.
Mike, on the original email draft, I wasn't shown as an attendee for last call.
Thank you. Hang on just a moment, Paul. I've had them on my screen, and for some reason I do not right now. So I want to make the
confirm he was there.
I remember it vividly. All right, thank you. I'll make that note and that change on the official.
I will change that. My bad. Sorry,
so
Paul.
You get that, Lil? I'm going to entrust that edit to you.
Got it.
And then we can continue to talk about any other edits as applicable. Hi, Patrick.
Hey, what's up?
Anybody else? Going once? Going twice? So then with that one edit made, sorry, Paul, for that oversight.
Not a problem.
I would accept a motion from somebody to accept the minutes as written with the addition of Paul in attendance.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Paul. I accept that motion. Greg, did you second it?
Yes, sir.
All right, so all in favor? I'm going to go across the top here. Greg?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Paul?
Yes.
Lil?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
Robert? Rob, you're a yes? You can nod or speak. And Tom, are you there?
I'm here, abstained because I wasn't there.
Very well, thank you. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 yes, 1 abstain. Lil. All right, so those are passed. I do not see, or I don't believe I see, Representative Robertson calling in with us this evening. Is that true?
We do not have him on the line at the moment.
Okay. I know that you'll let me know if he does come in. He admitted to me the other day that he'd be a game time decision. Obviously, he's a very busy fellow with a number of other activities. So I should let you all know I have offered him a standing invitation to our meetings. We certainly would love to have our representative here to engage in any conversation. He knows that and appreciates that, and I've asked him if he has something really meaty that we have to know about, that he please carve out the time and be here. So I suspect, at least at this time, he may not have anything of tremendous newsworthiness to share. So we will hope that at our next gathering, perhaps there will be something that he can bring to the table for us all to chew on. So that is that. We'll pass over number 2. If you don't mind, number 3, Valerie, I don't think I gave you too much of a heads up. I think I lobbed you an email while you were on vacation last week. So how was your vacation, by the way?
Great.
Excellent. You look well refreshed and rested.
No, I don't know.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was trying. Wanted to give you an opportunity to maybe let us know about any new commercial activity that's either in progress or that you've heard about kind of being talked about. Certainly, I think I personally have a great interest in knowing if there's anything in the planning phases, and I'm certain that our other members and the community would be as well.
Sure. Nothing that I know of in the planning stages. One thing that folks may be interested in is that the Starbucks, the landowner there is looking at figuring out how to change the drive-through so that it's not such a conflict with the bank. So they're working on plans for that, which isn't anything new, but it's definitely something that will improve people's lives a little bit. I've got, there's some industrial spaces that are working on leases, but nothing new as far as the smaller retail or commercial that I can think of. But also we haven't heard of folks closing either. So that's also a good thing.
Yeah.
So not too much going on. And you guys are probably a little bit more aware of how the restaurants are doing by, what you see in the evenings there in town. So not too much to report, but, maybe that's also a good thing.
That's the way I view it, and I'll certainly open it up to the rest of the board. But, we'd certainly love to see new establishments coming to town, but maybe right now is a tough time for a lot of organizations and companies to do that. So I'm not overly disappointed that you don't have a lot of positive news for us, but I am happy that you don't have a lot of negative news. That's what I've been concerned about, is just the staying power through this through the shutdown or the slow recovery, and whether or not businesses are able to stay able to be open. And so far, knock on wood, it seems like most of our businesses are hanging in there, especially the restaurants and stuff. But speaking personally, I have a kid that works at one of the more notable restaurants in town, and I'm not going to advertise for them. I don't want to go on record as doing that, but they're busy, right? So that's a good thing. Certainly, I've been to the other notable restaurant in town, and it was great. We had a very positive experience. So, and it was busy. So that's, I think, a good thing. You see a lot of folks posting on social media about their positive experiences at the various dining outlets in town. So again, it continues to be positive. The concern I have is, as the weather gets colder, how will they sort of jockey with the tents, and you can't close the sides of the tents down, and you can only have so many people indoors, and if it's too cold to be outdoors, what will happen if we haven't gotten through pandemic at that point, which it's unlikely we will have. So I don't have answers. These are all just questions that I'm sure the restaurateurs and business owners have. I have them too, and perhaps there'll be some creative thoughts that come out of the state or some of these restaurants themselves. But anyway, anybody else have any thoughts or observations there? Awesome. Rob, we're going to jump down to number 4. Thank you, Valerie, for your input and your ongoing feedback on that information. Obviously, if anything, I don't want to say earth-shattering, but anything of news reporting, I guess, happens, anything that would really be meaty occurs going through your office, I'd love to kind of get a heads up on it for our committee and for our members to be aware of.
Sure.
Rob, I know you did some work in communicating with, is it Ryan, I think, from WCTV, and at our last meeting we had kicked around this idea of maybe shooting and recording a short public service announcement of some variety. So I'll shut up, and why don't you report to the rest of the committee what you came up with, and then we can talk about what next steps might be, what we want to embrace on.
Yeah, so I talked with Ryan, and he had told me that we can have a maximum of 3 of us in there at a time. One would be the host from the WCTV, and 1 would be, 3 would be the our members that are doing the actual PSA. He also had said that, so on the Wilmington Commission on Disabilities, I'm becoming a cameraman for them. He's training me so that I could also be the cameraman for the EDC, Economic Development Committee, as well. So that is something that I am presently trying to set up with Lisa from WCTV and Dr. DiGiannetti, who will do the first PSA for the Commission on Disabilities Committee, which we'll be doing, I guess, in the next week or two. We're just trying to arrange that with Ryan and Lisa. So I guess the summary is that we can definitely do PSAs, just how we want to do them, what the content, what we want to be, or do we want to spotlight companies or do sponsorships? We can't go on and do a commercial or advocate anyone or give discounts. That's not allowed, but we can definitely do spotlights.
Yeah, thank you, Rob. That's valuable. My vision, and I know, Greg, you had brought up spotlighting a business perhaps for the first 5 minutes of our meetings each month or whatever, something along those lines. And I'm not opposed to that at all. So if someone wants to grab that ball and run with it, let me know and we'll put it on an agenda item for the subsequent meeting. But as it relates to a PSA, at least the first one, I really thought about using it as an opportunity to advise and educate our residents, the public, of our existence, of this committee's existence, and talk a little bit about the mission statement, talk about why we're here, and start to highlight. I think we've all kind of talked about, and certainly you, Rob, indicated that we'd want to do something short. I don't think we want to have a half-hour or 45-minute program because people are going to zone out on it. And I don't mean that negatively, but how much interest will there be?
You're right.
So I thought, a 15-minute overview my vision was if a couple of us were talking, could we then, after in post-production, lay in some video of some of the vacant lots in town, go up and down Main Street and just kind of shoot some of those empty buildings. Not that I want to be a real estate agent for those property owners, but as stated by the survey, the residents have expressed their concern over the I guess overwhelming number of empty buildings along Main Street specifically, but really throughout town. So is there a way that we could juxtapose some of the video of those buildings together with talking about what economic development is intending to do and what we've set our sights on? That's where my head goes. And then Greg, I don't want to talk over you. You had what I thought was a real good idea about some shorter blurbs.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I had mentioned previously to Rob and Mike that I thought not only do I think Mike's idea is a good idea, kind of give an overview to the community who might not be able to see our meetings in a short video, but I also thought it would be useful to create some really shorter videos, whether they were 2 to 3 minutes, that could be posted on social media, which we know reaches a lot of folks, and that those might be advantageous for us. So whether it's a shorter version of what Mike is describing, spliced down from the 15 minutes, or if there's something totally different, talking about what the mission is and how you can reach us and what we could do for you really quickly. I think that would get it across, and then you could kind of direct them to our website where we could try to hopefully host these links to these videos so people could, go and watch them at their leisure. So I think the idea of the stock footage in front of the vacant buildings around town would be awesome, and I think that would go over well.
The concern I have about the social media, the short blurbs, for lack of a better word, is the concern we've articulated on a few occasions when we've met, is what social media account does that go out on, right? So we don't want to create a Economic Development Committee Facebook page because of all the nuances and regulations that go into that and who controls it and open meeting and that, I don't know. So does it just become some content that we develop and then we as members post it out on our own personal social media accounts?
Well, I think
What happened?
if I may, I think that's a good idea, but I also think that we're very lucky in town to have such a fine IT director in John O'Neill. And I think with his newly formed Town of Wilmington Facebook page and a couple other accounts, that I think it would be appropriate to send out this messaging. He does a great job of sending out, most recently it was a lot of election stuff that's going on, mailing in ballots and whatnot, but he's also put out stuff on trash pickups and police PSAs. So there's some good stuff. And I think if we reached out to John, if he's listening, I think that would be a great avenue for us.
I'd be happy to take care of that.
See?
What a rock star. See, Greg, I don't have that kind of clout in the house. We needed you to kind of lob that out there.
You guys know you can contact me anytime.
Indeed, John.
Like the Wizard of Oz. You just say something and he answers, John.
It just happens.
Always listening.
That's what scares me, man. That's awesome. So, Rob, and committee, I was kind of thinking, Rob, when are you having that camera training? Is that it's happening imminently, or?
Yeah, well, we're just waiting now for a couple of the Commission on Disability members to respond to Doc Giannetti, and then I'll be going in there for that training. So I would definitely say within the next week or two at most.
So what I was thinking, and if anyone has either an objection or an alternative suggestion, I'm all ears. I thought perhaps Greg, myself, and Rob could meet externally from here as a sort of a subcommittee or whatever you want to call it, just meet and talk about the content, what kind of messaging we'd like to have in this sort of 10 to 15 minute presentation that goes out on WCTV. And just sort of, I don't know, I don't want to get overly technical about it because I'm not, but do like a storyboard kind of a thing. Just write out a visual of how we envision it, what the steps would be, so we can stay within the confines of the amount of time. And then once we have a sense of what that content is, maybe schedule a second meeting with Ryan and talk about what the process would be to get that both videotaped as well as lay in some of that other content from Main Street. I can grab a camera and go up and down Main Street too. So I don't think we have to get really, we're not trying to win an Academy Award here.
Right.
I think it's really just develop some content that's interesting enough and hopefully worthwhile for the residents to spend 15 minutes watching. So if the rest of the committee is amenable to that, I'd work with Rob and Greg on setting a time, and then we'd just continue blazing forward, between now and our next gathering time. Is that, we can pause and put the content together and bring it to the committee next month, or assuming it's next month, and make sure you're okay with that content, or I can ask you guys if you're okay with letting us kind of blaze forward with the trust that we're going to represent our efforts well. So I don't know, thoughts, questions, concerns, suggestions?
Mike,
I trust.
First, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm going to go to Paul first.
Mike, I'm personally okay with you guys going ahead, but I'm just curious in terms of the buildings that you're talking about. You've probably talked about this in prior meetings, but for example, the Walgreens, the Rite Aid. My understanding is that those aren't available. The companies are still paying the leases on those. Is that correct?
Yeah, Patrick, I might ask you to chime in. You've been typically more knowledgeable in those areas than some of us, or certainly more than me. I think you're right, Paul. My view is they stand out as
they do
blatant vacant buildings, and they might fit into the narrative in terms of a video kind of thing. Yeah. But I also don't want to give the wrong impression that we're trying to fill those spots. So. I don't know. Patrick, I don't know. Do you have a thought on that?
Yeah, you're not wrong, Paul. A lot of them do have leases on it, but if you look at like the Rite Aids, the Sir Speedy, Salvation Army, those all have 4 lease signs on them. So even though, I think room around the street that Rite Aid is still paying their monthly rent, I believe the landowner is still actively trying to lease the space. So I think the only one that would probably be out of question is Walgreens. I don't know if they're actively trying to lease that space or what's going on over there, but if you look at the Market Basket Plaza, there's 2 or 3 vacancies in there now, and then like I mentioned, a few others on 38 with Salvation Army, Sir Speedy, and then a few others as you drive up. Right.
No, that's okay. Yeah, I did notice those signs, but I heard conflicting stories that wasn't sure if they were truly available. So. Definitely, those are the ones that pop out when you see it, that everyone sees on a daily, daily basis. Certainly.
I can tell you guys, and I think I mentioned this probably a while back. The leasing agent for the Rite Aid contacted me a long time ago, and they still paying the lease. they would be interested in leasing.
Valerie, I'm going to interrupt you real briefly. I don't know where it's coming from. It's unique to you when you speak. I don't know if someone has WCTV on in the background or something. We're getting some wicked kind of echoey feedback. So I don't know. I just wanted to see if anyone does have something else operating there, maybe muted or something. But if not, then we'll just deal with it. We are legible, Valerie, but we're kind of getting a little echo. So continue.
Okay.
Sorry.
Is it better when I talk now?
It seems to be.
Okay, great. So I mentioned this, I think a while back, but the Rite Aid is still paying their lease. But I was approached by the leasing agent, and he was interested in looking for tenants, specific tenants, more towards healthcare, or someone who could pay sort of a higher lease. I hadn't heard anything from the Walgreens, so I think that's pretty much right on. Those were both paying their leases, but the Rite Aid, they've been looking for someone, or the right someone, I guess, to potentially fill the space.
Thank you. Sorry, someone else wanted to speak when I went to Paul. I forget who it was. Was it Lil? Were you going to offer something?
I just wanted to say that I'm fine with you guys, excuse me, figuring it out without bringing it back around. I trust.
Trust. I'm going to shoot your house and say, come fill this space. Patrick, any concerns about the plan that I laid out?
No, I think that sounds great, Mike. I think it'd be great to show what the committee's up to and some of the proactive approaches we're taking in town.
Great, thank you. Valerie, I presume the same?
Yeah, no, that sounds good.
Thank you. Tom, you're muted, but I'm going to hope that you're okay.
I'm okay.
That's good. All right. Well, thank you. Yeah, Rob and Greg, stay tuned. Let's make sure we stay in touch. After these meetings, time has a way of kind of zooming by, and I don't want to lose focus. So, let's get something taped in the next month or so. It'd be ideal if we had something in the can. Is that the technical? Is that video speak? In the can. By our next Economic Development Committee meeting. It would be awesome to sort of bring it up and show the fruits of our labor and maybe have a little bit of buzz in the marketplace for it. So we'll stay focused on it, team, and we'll keep you apprised of any activities along those lines. Yep. Thank you very much.
And Mike, I'll take that action to make sure that we schedule that between us. So you can let that one go, but I'll make sure that me and Greg get coordinated within the next week or so to do something.
Perfect, Rob. Thanks so much. I appreciate you grabbing the ball there.
Yep.
Agenda number 5. I want to just pause here and say, Paul, I wish Carol was here. I would say it to her personally, but hopefully she will listen to this later. Oh, by the way, let me pause and say that Nancy Valley did tell me earlier in the day that she wouldn't be here. So she's not just a no-show. She indicated to me that she wouldn't be able to make it. And Ms. Sullivan said that she was going to be arriving late. So I still have hopes that she'll be joining us. I meant to say that at the beginning of the meeting. I apologize. But related to Agenda 5, Paul, I want to say thank you to you and Carol for putting your heads together and working through the administrative process to get the Rotary Park message board updated with our. It's a brief message, but at least it was a. And how long is it still there, Paul?
I haven't been down that way in a few days. Last time I was down there, it was there.
Yeah. Okay. So for the rest of you, in case you're not aware, or if anyone that maybe is watching this because they can't get their clicker to work to get off the channel, the board over at Rotary Park was populated with a brief message that I wish I had it in front of me. But Paul, how did it read?
It just said Wilmington businesses on the top, and then questions, concerns, and then directed them to their town website. Just on the chance that if someone was going by and say, oh, I own a business, to try and direct them. Now, will it generate any traffic? I don't know, but, put the name out there, and probably something, once they take it off, maybe we can rotate it back in on occasion so that it doesn't go away completely.
And as we get more content on the website, right? So websites that don't refresh or don't get new information, people just don't pay attention to them. So I think it was a worthwhile effort to at least make the public aware that we have a presence. And so that's the first step. The next step is to continue to update and revise and edit that presence so that people come back for the new info. So thank you very much for taking that action, Paul. It was we said we were going to do it, and we did it. So kind of nice when you see the fruits of labor. I didn't know, John, you're our resident techno geek. Do you have the ability, or did you gather any information about? Have we had additional hits or additional flow of people checking out our link on the page?
In the last 30 days, we've had 120 unique page views to the EDC site. We also have a total of 47 subscribers to the EDC e-alert. As I mentioned, I think previously in the last meeting, we'll want to continue to update the page with new information, especially to the news section. We posted that one blurb about the Fitchburg State virtual seminar for businesses on COVID. So each time we create a news item, subscribers to the e-alerts will receive that news item to their email.
Thank you very much, John. I don't know about you folks, but what did you say, 120 unique hits?
In the last 30 days, correct.
I don't view that as necessarily a bad thing. Some folks might say, 120, we have 23,000 people. I think 120 is not too shabby. I think maybe we generated at least a little bit of interest. So I don't know if anyone has any feedback or thoughts on that.
Mike, I think that's great. Don't forget, we haven't really done too much until the sign went up to drive traffic there. So a lot of that could be the sign working. Other could be just people that are curious. So the more we can do things like the sign, all the better.
I think they're actually all me. I think I have 3 computers in my house, and I hit the site from different angles. No, I'm kidding. I'm just joking. I drove by the message board at Rotary, and I took a picture of it with my cell phone. When I got home, I cropped it a little bit, and I put that out as a social media post. Look at both people that are friends with me on Facebook probably clicked on the website. So there's one of them. That's great. No, I think it's good news. We just have to continue to refresh and put information out there. And to that point, I guess I would humbly ask any of you that come across information, whether it's state information or small business administration or anything that you feel like would be valuable to business owners or business professionals in Wilmington. It doesn't even have to be by Wilmington. I think if it's good content, we can put a link to it and make it available to those that are paying attention. It'll drum some more hits into the site, but also hopefully we're not looking just for hits. We're looking for folks to recognize that we are a resource and a repository for valuable information. So if you have valuable information, lob it at me or whatever, and we will work with John to get it onto the page. The Fitchburg State link, which was a cool session, it was a webinar that they made available for businesses, a guide for them in the reopening. That happened, so it was past tense. So we pulled that down at the end of last week, but didn't replace it with anything. So it would be awesome if we could identify some other programs or links to services, we could post that up there. So be aware of that, please, and send that stuff through. Thank you, John, for giving us that webpage data. I think that is useful. I wanted to say that I have acquired through Nancy Valley, you know how she is sort of maintaining a database of contacts for us to potentially do a campaign, whether it's a mailed campaign or an email campaign. And she continues to massage and update that database. So we have somewhere to the tune of, forgive me, 700-ish email addresses that are local business professionals. They are Wilmington-based businesses and contacts at those businesses. And so the question was, are these appropriate folks to place into the notification? So I'm not even sure if it's legal to do that. They would need to probably subscribe before we could place them in. Is that accurate? Or could we just sort of subscribe them and give them the option of unsubscribing if they get a notification?
Well, I wonder if we can email them and, kind of ask them if they want to. And if they do, they can just click the link to do it. Or if we don't hear from them, we don't. I don't know how that works logistically, but
yeah.
I don't think there's anything. I don't think it's illegal to send out a blast email, just asking, as long as we're not spamming them, of course. But
yeah, no, I think that's a reasonable.
Yeah.
I got to think about how to do it. I think about how I do stuff at work, but we're at the town and I got to change my hat. It would be easy to do from a work email. John, could we email 715 people with a brief message that this is from the Wilmington Economic Development Committee? We have a page that is a resource to local businesses, yada, yada, yada. I'd come up with the language for it, and then have a link there that says if you would like to subscribe to future notifications from the Economic Development Committee, click here. Is that something we could set up?
Yes, that's something we could do.
Okay, I'm going to talk to you tomorrow about it. Is that a reasonable? Is everyone okay with that approach? I like it better than just throwing their names into the notification process.
I agree.
Without asking them first.
I agree.
Yeah.
Thank you, Will. I appreciate your thought on that.
Mike, just obviously, I think you'll probably think of this, but I wanted to note that in that email, our committee's contact, the website, our mission statement, those things would be included, all the kind of important things so that they could subscribe. I would imagine those will be included in the email, correct?
Yeah, that would be my intent. I mean, I don't want to make it too wordy because the action item is subscribe to our notification. If it's down at the bottom of 5 paragraphs of text, they may not get there. Okay. So I absolutely, Greg, will try to incorporate some of that content that I think is important and necessary to be there. But I also don't want to bury the lead. A lot of that content is on the page, so we want to get them to the page to see it. Yeah, we will. It won't just be a one-sentence email. We'll try to make it a little sexier than that.
I trust you will.
I don't know. That's probably not the right word. Hang on just a moment. I'm making a note to myself, but Lil, you're going to have to remind me of this stuff tomorrow in the minutes. Okay. We're blazing forward. This is great. 6 was really the meat of this anyway. Returning back to the original mission. And that was brought up, I think, by Carol. And we all, I think, kind of universally agreed with it at our last meeting, which is, we went through the painstaking process of doing the. Oh wait, let me pause. I don't have on the agenda here. I just realized that the letter that I wrote, or the draft of the letter for the from managers, what do you call it? Town topics. And I just noticed it's not on the agenda, so I don't know. I wanted to talk about that before going to the original mission thing. So I'm going to do it anyway. So if anybody wants to have a problem with it, they can write me a letter. I sent out the draft.
New business. It falls under new business.
You think it should go under new business? So I'll come back to it, or I'll. No,
you can just jump to new business and talk about it.
Anybody have a problem with me jumping to new business for the moment? Good. I'm gonna do. We'll have another opportunity for new business. When we get down past 8. But yeah. So I crafted and wrote the letter, a draft of a letter that I would propose to send to Beverly Dalton / Jeff Hall for inclusion in the next town topics that we'll go out with. Is it with tax bills or water bills? I forget what it goes into.
Property tax, I believe.
Property tax, I think, okay. Yeah.
And everyone's so happy to get that.
Yeah.
So the way I look at it is, if you haven't had a chance to read it, write back to me with any edits, any revisions, any concerns. But if you're prepared to tell me now that it's okay, or if there's something there you'd like to tweak, I did hear from Nancy that she thought it was okay as prepared. Suzanne told me that there was one correction. I spelled her name wrong, which I felt very embarrassed about, but otherwise she was okay with the content. So I don't want to be presumptuous about providing content to Jeff Hall if there's content there that you folks would like to have included or not included. So now's the time to speak, or if you want more time, let me know over the course of the next couple days, because I do have to submit it. I'd like to submit it by the end of this week.
Mike, I read it earlier this afternoon, and I thought it was fine. I didn't have a problem with it. I thought it was well done.
Okay.
As well, Mike.
I agree.
I agree as well.
Very well. Thank you. So I will. I'll re-articulate that to the missing members at this point. If any of them have any last-minute additions or revisions. If it's a large one, I don't know. I don't want to change the whole letter without bringing it back to you guys. So somehow we'll figure out a way to do that. I don't suspect that will be the case. So the letter, much as it is now, will be the one that gets submitted. So thank you very much for that. I'm going to revert back to original work that we had set our sights on. As you all know, we went through the exercise in the fall and beginning of this year, fall of last year, beginning of this year, to do the Why Wilmington, which was fun. As well as the survey, which was even more fun, and gathered a lot of good information. And I think we were really making a good headway or momentum towards using that content to report to the town what the town is saying about itself, what the residents are saying about our economy and what they see, but also to guide our actions, to guide our goals and what we do next and how we do it. And then obviously this stinking COVID thing came in and really thwarted our efforts. And I think we did the right thing by throttling back a little bit and pivoting into being a resource for the reopening information, getting the website up and running, and doing some of the other administrivia that hadn't yet been put in place. So I'm not disappointed. Well, I'm disappointed in COVID, but I'm not disappointed that that content lied dormant for a little while. But we are here now. And we are looking at, God willing, being able to say post-COVID at some point, hopefully in the nearer future than far. And so, the observation was made, can we start to talk about how we use this data? A, how we report the data that was gathered, and B, how we use the data to guide our action items. So I want to lob it out there. I'm not good at massaging data. We have the spreadsheet. John, did you? I think I had mentioned possibly having the ability to bring up the graphs that Valerie, I think it was Valerie that put that together.
For the survey?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I can bring them up right now.
Thanks. So the survey, and I was maybe I'm overthinking it because I do that. Would it make sense to? There it is. I was thinking, could we cull this down to some overarching message? That the residents would, I don't know, I'm not sure how many pages this thing is. It's not copious amounts of information. So, is there a summary statement that we could put ahead of this or at the end of this that says, this is our take, these are our takeaways as a committee from the content that you gave us that is represented in the charts and graphs and the word clouds, et cetera. And then so we could place that on the committee's website, and then I guess we need to talk about how we use this now. How do we guide our actions and our goals based on the information we have here? So I've talked a lot about it. I really would welcome some of you fine folks to make some suggestions about how we can do those things.
Mike, if I could, just one thought. John, if you don't mind going back one slide. One of the things that stands out to me when thinking about how to do this messaging is that question number 7, what is your age? And if you notice, the majority of the folks who replied to this particular survey were 35 to 44. Now, that's probably because this was distributed via social media. So it brings two questions. Should we target that group? And how do we, as we know, we have a growing senior population in town. How can we better communicate with them? Town Topics, I think, is going to be a great way to get a hold of our message to those folks. But what other ways? So is it something in the town crier, that we could try to get to? I look at that as good news. We've reached a certain population. Bad news, we haven't reached a very large population in our community. That's just one takeaway on question 7.
Are you suggesting that we maybe pause just a little bit and send the survey again through different media to try to attract that specific demographic?
I'm just saying, I think it's lesson learned that, maybe we already knew that the media would maybe perhaps reach a younger demographic, but that we need to make sure that, we're doing things. It justifies you going through this exercise with the Town Topics essay that you've written. And I think that's going to reach them. I think that's, now we've kind of done a little bit of something to reach every audience, whether it was a younger audience on social media, an older population who opens up their Town Topics and doesn't, rip it up because they're upset with their tax bill, or somebody just driving by and reading the sign. So I think it justifies a few of the things you've done.
I appreciate that, Greg. I guess I'm questioning. I'm not questioning. Is there an action item you are suggesting here? Based on, I really do. I welcome that observation, and I kind of feel almost a little bit bad that we didn't, when we were promoting the survey. I think we used the Apple. We used Robert to get the word out a little bit. We used our own social media. I know I did. But yeah, I didn't go to the print press, and that's a mistake now in hindsight, because I think we did probably miss some of our residential demographic because of not doing so.
Well, that comes with a cost too, right? And we obviously have no budget, so we have to work within our means. So
they would have probably they probably would have taken a press release from us, and we would have gotten some ink, some free ink. I'm not saying we place an ad, but I think if we had written a brief article and sent it to the crier, we would have gotten the crier readers who perhaps aren't Apple readers. So
right. So why don't you send the Town Topics message to the town crier and see if they'll.
So if we wanted to redo the survey, though, how would we get these people to fill it out? If we want to target maybe the elderly population, that may not have access to computers or just, don't even use them or whatever.
Yeah, surveys are tough. I think Valerie can attest to that. She's a number of great surveys, but sometimes it's tough to get to people. I think that we could utilize someone who's in touch with our senior population, like Harry. But unfortunately, the senior center's not operating at full capacity right now. That's a challenge that we have to do. So I think Town Topics and pursuing something in the crier would be beneficial.
Just to jump in, Terry does have her own newsletter. It might be worth talking to her to see how that newsletter reaches her elderly population and whether there's something you can include in it.
The Bazell newsletter.
Yep, correct.
The Bazell Buzz, right?
Correct.
So you guys know we did send the press release to the crier. I can't remember if they did or not. They may have done it small, but when we did send it out.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Valerie. I didn't remember that, so I'm sorry. That's great.
I think if you did send it out again, you could, if possible, could coordinate within like a 2-week period to have it. Send an email, have it maybe on the Rotary Park sign, town crier, and whatever places within that same 2-week period, for example, to bring attention to it. Might help up the responses. I know that a lot of people don't. I still use email. I know people are starting to, especially younger people, moving away from email. Personally, not on social media other than YouTube, but I'm not active on social media. But I think a lot of other people are. I don't know if you could send it on Twitter, things like that. Might gain some of the younger people.
Okay, so I'm hearing a couple things. Yeah, Greg, go ahead.
Just to piggyback on that, two thoughts occurred to me. And one is you're going to be sending the 700 plus emails to the business owners, correct?
I was going to say the same,
yeah. So, right, we're going to ask them if they want to be a part of the notification system.
And if they don't, perhaps they want to fill out the survey, because if John's kind enough to bring up the survey again, the first question I believe is, do you live in Wilmington? And it was overwhelming people who live in Wilmington. Well, what about the people who work in Wilmington? This would be a great way to get the response from them. So you can see there in blue, very few people who work in Wilmington filled it out. Not to say that, obviously the residents' opinion is the most important, but want to get all perspectives here. How do we up that blue graph? Maybe through that survey. And the other thought I had was, with the upcoming elections, there'll be a lot of people going to the polls. Would it be worthwhile pursuing a flyer, or to have gathering information that way?
Yes, all of the above. So I'm hearing a couple things. I was thinking that we were potentially going to start being at a place where we would use, I think we had 1,221 responses to the survey, plus or minus. That was the number that I had written down on it at one point, which I viewed as a pretty darn good response given the way that we distributed this. So I was of the mind that starting kind of this evening, we would start to talk about how do we take the content we gathered in the survey and do the things that I talked about a few moments ago. Package it, report it, and use it to guide our steps. What I'm hearing is that it seems to be a desire to try again to up the responses by using some of these other media outlets, both the email as well as maybe going through using Election Day with a flyer, and maybe sending something to Terry to have her constituents be aware of the survey itself. And so sort of go into a little bit of a pause to gather another collection of data.
Well, if I could, forgive me, I've been talking too much, but I think that we could explore those avenues for future messaging. I'm not suggesting we have to go back and redo the survey, because admittedly, I haven't been able to read all 1,200 responses. But perhaps when we consider future messaging, that we look at those options and we try to utilize a thing like an event like an election that will draw a lot of people. Perhaps maybe September 1st is too close, but November 3rd, we could figure out what that could be another target for us.
And I have to agree with Greg. We had the survey open for a month, and I do think we explored quite a few different channels. Granted, a lot of our channels didn't reach that population of the 75 plus, whatever that last bar is, but I do think we gave it a good attempt. I think we have a good collection of data throughout town. I don't know if we need to reopen the survey. Perhaps we should work with the results that we have, and then we could use these avenues for future messaging.
Thank you. That's Patrick. I mean, I think you summarized very well where my head is at on this. I presume at some point we're going to have additional communications, whether they're two-way communications or outbound communications. So I think this conversation is certainly fruitful and useful to think about how we communicate, what media we use, and how we do it. But yeah, if we can sort of start to use the content at our fingertips, I think that would be appropriate. I don't know. Any other thoughts on that specifically? To that end, then, we have this pretty data that John had on screen a little while ago. We have a lot of Word data that Valerie had presented to us at one of our live meetings before we went into COVID. I don't have that printed here, but I know we had an email, or not an email, but a presentation. I think that personally, I feel like the slides that John had on screen a few moments ago with the word clouds, maybe we could go through and highlight some of the really big, the buzzwords, the ones that are really bold and large, sort of towards the middle. What page were you? You're on the strengths, right? So I hate that one right dead center in the middle, but it's an observation, isn't it? When you think about economic development, what are Wilmington's strengths? And unfortunately, a lot of folks said none. And some folks would view that as a negative thing. I guess we can switch our thinking and talk about it as an opportunity. We have an opportunity here to change people's perspective. How we do that, I guess, is the question. So there's location, right? The presumption there is location vis-a-vis Boston and the highways. Proximity, I think, is probably the same context as location, and so on and on. So, is this format, does this capture in summary form sufficient enough the data that we gathered, which is 96 pages worth of responses, or do we put the entire results of the survey up on the EDC page, or just this, or something other than this, and cull it down to something even shorter with a summary statement? I don't know the answer, by the way. It's a rhetorical question, or not rhetorical. It's an actual question. Go for it.
Mike, I think when people analyze data, I think simplicity and colors tend to speak a lot. I think if we just put up all of the results, it's going to be too cumbersome. I think we're going to lose a lot of the audience. So I think exactly what Val put together here with the word cloud and the different color survey responses, I think that's perfect. I'd like to maybe see that word cloud edited to take out none, especially if we're trying to appeal to the business community. But I do think that just publishing these simple slides, it's perfect.
I agree. People don't want to spend time to read. They just want to see a snapshot, excuse me, that they can look at and get the information.
I don't want to spoon feed things to folks. I mean, folks are intelligent and they can interpret this however they wish to. But do we as a committee have takeaways from these few slides? Are there some overarching principles, or what are we getting from this that we can maybe summarize? That's what I'm thinking. Is it worthwhile to say, here's our thoughts. This is when we look at this. This is what we feel like we see. And here it is. Here it is, Wilmington. Take a look at it. See if you agree with our assessment of it. Is that a worthwhile exercise, or should we just blob it out there and let folks interpret it how they will?
Well, I mean, I think, excuse me, I think the results speak to that. People want to see obviously more retail and more, restaurants and places to go. They want more nightlife or entertainment. That to me was the biggest takeaway.
Yeah, experiential.
Experiential, right? They want to go out. They don't want to have to leave town if they don't have to. They don't want to go to Burlington. They just want to stay here in Wilmington, shop, go out to eat, and have that kind of marketplace without a marketplace, but have that kind of one-stop shopping experience.
That was one that really stuck out with me. I'm looking forward here. Please tell us where you do most of the following. And it was, dine out. And to a large degree, folks leave Wilmington to dine out. I think it's page 2 of the chart. But nevertheless, that to me struck out as that and entertainment were almost predominantly other communities. And to me, I think that's an opportunity for folks in Wilmington and for us to look at businesses in those sectors and express that there's an opportunity for them to come into Wilmington and appeal to our audience. Hi, Suzanne, how are you? No, you're muted. Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Hi, sorry about that. I had it mute so there wouldn't be any background noise. Sorry.
No worries. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, right there. The second line on this graph, it says dine out. Look at that blue line. That's folks that are leaving town to go out for dinner or for a meal. And then way down at the bottom, there is retail shopping. I can see why. They're not, frankly, not a lot of folks are doing retail shopping. There's less and less of that happening in storefronts. And that's not a Wilmington issue. That's really just an economic issue. But then on the entertainment side, we talk about experiential. Folks are looking for that experience to go out and do something. And when they do, they don't do it here. So I think there's an opportunity there for would-be businesses in that sector to appeal to that audience. And I guess that's the message I feel like we want to get out somehow to the potential business community. But so I went off on a tangent. Is the thinking then, as what Lil said, I mean, this is reasonably easy data to look at and understand. Do we think that we could just simply take the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and whatever it is, 9 pages of that content and place it into the Economic Development Committee's page on the town website? And then we have that accomplishes a couple of goals. One, it puts the content that we went through the pain and anguish to gather, and that the 1,221 recipients took the time to send us. We make it available, and we achieve the good part of populating our site with valuable content. That's all the benefits there. But then we also are able to start to talk about, what do we do with it now? How do we use this data to start mapping our course forward? But are you guys okay with taking that action? Do we want to add something to it before we post it?
I mean, I think it might be good to at least do a summary and post it with it, don't you think?
I kind of do, but I'm not trying, I don't want to sell it too hard. If there's opposition to that idea, I'd certainly listen to that discussion.
I mean, you could say something like, it's kind of self-explanatory, that I wouldn't, in other words, but that it's kind of self-explanatory, and just hit the high notes, what the points were. The overwhelming, restaurants versus, I don't know.
Yeah, I was thinking just a brief, paragraph.
Mm-hmm.
Not even a full paragraph that says, thank you to the respondents, right? So first and foremost, thank you to all those that participated. It's taken us a little while to get to this point. We're excited about moving forward. And here's the data. And what we took away from this data is a couple of big bullet points. And really just offer those, the big bullets, and then enjoy the data and look forward to ongoing communications from Economic Development Committee on how we're going to use this information to march forward.
Yep.
And I can write something to that effect and lob it out at you folks. And if anyone has objections with any of the content that I put in as this little paragraph, let me know and I'll revise it. But is that okay with everybody?
Yeah.
Fine with me.
Yeah. Okay, I'll take a swing at it. I tend to be wordy, in case you haven't noticed. So I'm going to try to hold myself back and not write a novel. I really will try to be brief and putting something up there. But we will do that, and then we'll get it posted. And that'll be something to individually in our own social media accounts to let your friends and family know that that this is available. The way we draw interest into our page is by letting people know that we have a page. So that's partially done through John and through some, through the town, but it's also done through us. So when that is available, I'll let you all know. Now, in terms of using the data, maybe that's a larger discussion, and it's 7 o'clock. So perhaps we start to really delve into now what, and we can do that now. If we want to chew up, 15 to 20 minutes of it, I'm willing to do so. Or if we want to focus almost all of our energy on that at our next meeting. So I'll take the pulse of you folks and decide, determine how you'd like to play. Hey, look, Carol's here.
Oh, hi, Carol.
Hello.
Hi, Carol.
Hi.
You want to take a swing at least a couple of thoughts on it before we punch out? It's your call, guys.
Yeah, I'm okay with sticking around another 15. And Mike, as the newest member, I'm curious how in the past have we gone? Now we've got this information, and it's none of it is surprising. I think it's probably reinforced what everyone would kind of think off the top of the head in terms of just the lack of restaurants and what people are looking for. But in the past, have we gone out to, either business owners or prospective restaurateurs? I mean, how does that work? Have we done anything like that in the past or tried?
You know what, Paul? This was our first swing at the bat. we started this little endeavor of ours in, I don't know, June, July, whatever it was, of last summer, when we finally kind of got organized, if you want to call it that. Spent at least a couple of meetings writing the mission statement and kind of defining who we are, and describing the tasks and how we're formed. And so just getting through the logistics of what this committee is. We really didn't get to the point of being outbound and doing the survey. We did a quick one question thing. Patrick, I think, kind of helped us launch that, which was why Wilmington. And so we gathered some information there, which was consistent with the information we got on the survey. The survey started in the fall. I think it kind of lagged into the early winter of 2020 of this year. And as we were starting to cull the data together and have this conversation, we got hit with COVID, and we just kind of went into a pause mode. So that's a long answer to your good question, Paul. We haven't, only because this was really our first. Let's try this, and it's also a bandwidth thing. We're all volunteers with real jobs, so this notion of walking up and down the street and knocking on doors, we're going to have to try to use our technology tools, because I think that it's going to be difficult for us to make those one-to-one connections that you're describing. But I'm not opposed to that. I'm not sure that we have.
No, I mean, I don't know if there was an opportunity to like, is there like a New England restaurant? I'm trying to think of like the name, like New England restaurant that I've heard that, that we, in other words, you've got a town really that's very hungry for using a restaurant's an easy example, but I think a more upscale Tre Mezzo type restaurant would do very well, because people are, we've got plenty of sub shops, but we don't necessarily have go out and dine, maybe Rocco's and Tre Mezzo. So I think but how do we find those people that are in that business? I'm not in that business. Do we know anyone that is, that we can reach out to that organization, if there is such a thing, to say, hey, look, this is if you have people who are looking to open a new place or a new branch, this is a good place to do it, because we're hungry for that type of business. I think it would do very well.
I think that you hit Paul, where we kind of left off. Our surveys, I don't know if you took the survey or not before you were on the committee, but that's kind of exactly the feedback that we got. Number one was more upscale anything, and not chains. And I think, Robert, wasn't your nephew or something going to come in and do a thing about a pub or something? So we were kind of starting to explore, what draws a new enterprise into a town like us. We were just kind of getting on to that when, again, we kind of came to a screeching halt.
Right. No, and I think that's obviously where we want to go. And obviously it's not an easy thing. Some of the properties that I've heard about, it's a lot of money. It would have to be a big organization to take some of these spots. But that being said, we want to see what we can do to reach out to these type of organizations to see if can drum up some business, basically. So
yeah. The other thing we were doing, Paul, is I'm sorry, Mike, we were kind of clearing the pathway, I think, for some of the open properties in town as to why are they open, reaching out to some of the landlords and things like that to kind of see availability of property. In other words, not just to draw people in to town, new businesses, if there's no available real estate for them to occupy. So we were kind of going off on that direction too.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, if I could.
God, please call me Mike, Valerie, but thank you. Yes, you can.
I don't know why I automatically say that. The other side of things is if folks are really wanting to bring restaurants in, the idea of making it easier for restaurants to get established in town. So maybe looking at our zoning, and currently restaurants are required to get special permits, and a requirement like that makes it harder for a restaurant to come in and get established. It's an extra step in the process. It's a risky step. If there are areas of town, zoning districts, where we want to encourage restaurants, we look at the idea of allowing them as a right. That could be something that, if that's, the zoning changes is done this way, would be a clear message to restaurants and property owners that we want restaurants in town. So that's another idea of potential action item to consider.
Excuse me, just a moment.
If I could, Valerie, educate me and maybe all of us a little bit on that process. So there's a bylaw now that states if you're a would-be restaurant, you go through the planning process, I imagine, or you come into your office and there's some documentation to fill out. But then do they go to the planning board for approval and then have to go for a special permit to the zoning board of appeals, or how does that process work?
Yeah, sure. So if they're a brand new building, they would definitely come to the planning board for the plan review process. If they're a new use, it was a bookstore or something, and now it's a restaurant, they come to the planning board for review. Not necessarily for a restaurant, but for the site layout. Currently, and I don't have the zoning in front of me, but I believe in a general business district, restaurants are special permit uses, so they would have to go to the Board of Appeals to get a special permit for the use itself. And special permits for kind of safeguarding, having more control of what goes where. So you're saying you may or may not belong in a general business district. If you're a restaurant, we want to have conditions on you, review you, that there's a little bit more control of what happens. Allowing something as a group is more of a, you're welcome here. You don't have to go through the appeals for a special permit, and it's more of an encouraging sort of thing where you don't put all the conditions on those uses that you would with a special permit. So there is a little bit of giving up a little bit of control, but you would still have the normal process with the planning board that would happen with any sort of use.
If I may follow up on that, the process for making a recommendation for a change to that would be to the Board of Selectmen, I presume, for them to place the zoning change on as a warrant on as an article on the town meeting warrant. Yes?
Yeah, I guess I would recommend working with the planning board a little bit, just to since they're sort of the planning agency of the town and often make zoning recommendations. So maybe seeing maybe a collaborative thing that could be, they often bring zoning articles to town meeting, but either one, Board of Selectmen or planning board, I think getting the planning board's input would be a good idea.
Can I just weigh in on that a little bit? Because I know in Burlington, you had to get a special permit, I believe, for a restaurant. I don't think that that's probably the impediment. But that being said, I think it's kind of cumbersome that it's actually in the ZBA's hands and not just the planning board's hands. It seems to make more sense just to have it a planning board special permit and not a ZBA special permit, if you still want to go special permit. But I mean, the purposes of a special permit is basically to protect the surrounding neighborhoods, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's to have controls and conditions on the use so that it's not impacting its neighbors. It's kind of a message that you may or may not belong well here. Review you and see if you fit, and we're going to put conditions upon you so that you don't have negative impacts.
Right. So that's something to think about to do away with that. I mean, I think we should look at other towns and see how other towns do it. I think, like, for instance, like I said, I don't think Burlington has, you have to get a special permit to get a restaurant license in Burlington. They don't have a problem getting any restaurants. So I would just throw a little caution to the wind in that regard. But I do think that a lot of the results in the survey do tell us that there's a lot of work to do. And I do think that that the bylaws absolutely need to be reviewed and changed to accommodate better uses and maybe even overall a larger project type of use. I think we really need to look at the bylaws. I mean, I was just in, where was I today? I was in Hanscom, I think it was, Hanover, and they just did some redevelopment there, and it was just so awesome, so, same thing, maybe a little retail, restaurants. It was really, really kind of neat. So, I don't know, that would be my recommendation. I think we should really take a look at all the bylaws, for commercial.
Suzanne, do you think that should be done before? So is this kind of steps in the process, maybe, that we look at bylaws first and then look at ways to entice business, or can we do everything in tandem, or should we?
I think we should look at, if we look at the bylaws to make any recommendations, I think we should look at it specifically to say what are the impediments in those bylaws? What are the barriers that exist that could be deterring people from wanting to come to Wilmington? We know that we have some issues maybe with the way the tax structure is. We know that we don't really have outdoor seating defined as well as we should. Valerie brings up a good point to look at the special permitting process. So I think to look at anything that could be an impediment is really important. So when we look at it, that's what we should, I think we should, if we wanted to do that would be the way to look at it. Identify the impediments first. I mean, what do you think, Valerie? I mean, you're involved with them on a daily basis. I mean, you must know a lot of the impediments.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that obtaining a special permit is an impediment for everyone, I guess, but I think it can be something that people see as an extra step and a risk. But if they really want to be there, they're going to get the special permit. They're going to go through the special permit process. And Carol, I think that you can do all of those at the same time. Really, I would think. I think making steps to encourage businesses like restaurants through zoning is a great form of marketing, saying, hey, the town is making changes to encourage restaurants in certain zoning districts along Main Street or wherever. And that's kind of a real action step that says a lot about wanting to bring people here, wanting to bring restaurants here, I think. So it could be even just a step that we're able to talk about to get people interested.
Mm-hmm. And that could be something to look at too with the tax structure. Is there any way to entice through that avenue? I don't know. The meals tax or whatever the local tax is, if there's any wiggle room there too.
Can you also give some sort of an incentive for businesses to come in? God knows where we get the money, but I know a lot of towns do that. They incentivize people to come.
Exactly. Yep. And I mean, I really think the zoning is something to really look at. I looked at the place that I saw today. I looked it up online, and they did things like making sure, like changing the zoning and the structure so that people want to walk, to have pedestrian access to these places, So I think looking at the bylaws and creating something like that would be a great idea. Of course, I always think of North Wilmington as being, the diamond in the rough. You could actually implement something like that if everybody got on board with it, as long, with the property owners also. But to look at, what would be the best place to implement a change in zoning like that? Like if you wanted to do a project like that, I don't know. But I think the zoning is a great place to look at least what we have existing zoning and what if there's any impediments.
So I'm hearing, yeah, and I agree. But Carol, and you said, do we do that and then do some sort of outbound communications? And I think the fact that if we agree that we can start to explore and review the bylaws and the special permit process, and start to try to remove or at least be aware of and look for improvements to the process. If we can credibly report that we are embarking on that effort, I think we can then, on the same track or parallel, going outbound to would-be businesses by some mechanism, which we can talk about in a second, and be convincing to those would-be businesses that, you know what, the Economic Development Committee is in place. We're working on this project on another avenue that will hopefully be beneficial to other businesses. So we're serious about business in Wilmington now. And I think that becomes part of this marketing message. So I do think that we can kind of pursue both avenues. Suzanne, I hate to even suggest it, but you like getting into the weeds with bylaws. So, I mean, I'll gladly sit down with you and turn the pages, but you know, I feel like you're the right person to sort of spearhead that effort in collaboration with other members here if they're so inclined to do so.
Well, I can certainly look at, you know, like neighboring towns and look at how they've made some of their changes to, you know, Woburn just did some new rezoning, for instance, you know, where the Woburn Mall is, you know, just to look at, see how, you know, whatever the changes are that they made and whether, you know, I'm not saying any changes other towns make would work for Wilmington, but just to look at how they structure them and how they streamlined any processes. And I know a lot of towns have done that to streamline some processes. And I think that we could probably figure out a way to do it too. I don't mind looking at stuff and, you know, sharing things with the committee. It helps to have an education on what other towns are doing.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of not reinventing the wheel. If someone else is already doing what we want to do, let's steal it. You know,
hey, if it works for another community, it could work for us. And you might have to just tweak something a little bit, but you know.
Yeah, and on the small tweaks or just incremental change is easier for folks to understand than a whole new brand new thing. So where we can make kind of steps in the right direction, I find that that's something that people can be supportive of and understand.
Right.
Mike, and I'm just wondering now, so at one point we were pivoting away from attracting new business because we were trying to just support the local during CV19, which I think was a great move. But do you think maybe it's time for us to re-engage with the individual that we were going to have come out here and just kind of do some investigative work with us and see, hey, this is why I would come out here, or this is why I would come out here, and these are the things maybe you could change to get me to bring my business out here. I think we have a person that has 5 restaurants, you know, in the Worcester Milford area, maybe, and he was willing to come out here and look around and talk to people and see if he was interested in bringing a brewery out here or another restaurant. But we kind of put that on the side during CV19, which I think was appropriate. But do you think maybe it's a time to reopen or
I do, Rob. Thanks for bringing it up. I don't know if anyone else, if everyone feels the same.
Oh, absolutely.
I absolutely feel that way. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more than happy to take that action item as well.
Thank you, Rob. I'd love that. Before we end here tonight, we'll talk about a date for our next gathering. It would be awesome to have. Is it a him? I don't want to be presumptuous.
Yes,
I would love to have him join us and you know, give us his perspective. If he can before that time, kind of get a little lay of the land around here and drive around or have a conversation with maybe a couple of us ahead of time.
Perfect.
But yeah, I think that's a perspective that would be really healthy.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Into the room.
Great.
Something else I wanted to kind of bring up, was talking about this outbound. We now have this data from the survey which corroborates, I think, a lot of, to your point, Paul, a lot of what was intuitive. I think we already kind of knew what people would say, but we needed the data. We couldn't assume that they would say what we thought they would. We really needed them to say it, and they did. So now we have that corroborating data. so now I'm thinking about how do we take that and package it in a way that is marketing, for lack of a better word. So I think, Paul, you mentioned going to the Mass Restaurant Association or something like that, National Restaurant Association, or going to these associations, or even picking Whole Foods specifically, just because we hear that a lot. Is there a marketing piece, whether it's a website or a customized email template or a brochure, flyer, or all of the above, that we can produce that capitalizes on some of the advantages and benefits of us as a community and what we have to offer and why Wilmington's such a great place for business, that we can start to put together to use in sending out to these would-be organizations and or companies? I think there is. I just don't know how we get there. So I don't know if there's any conversation people would like to have on that.
Well, I mean, baby steps sometimes first, right? So I think the first thing is to get the results up on the website, right? Because I think the website is like the key to communicating with the business community. So if somebody's doing, I don't know, there's got to be some type of network where you can put your information out there. But I mean, I think a lot of times if somebody's looking to maybe, looking at a building and they go to the town website and they go to see, the Wilmington economic development surveys that we have 2, right? Well, we actually have 3, but we have 2 really good ones. And I think they'll look at that and say, oh yeah, look, a lot of people want to have a restaurant there. They want to support this, or they want to do that. So I think that's the first step that we can do. We probably have to do some research to look for, like a network where we can reach out to the business community. I just don't know what exists there. I have no idea.
I have the ability, using some tools that I use for work, to do some research and find some of these, whether they're consortiums or organizations. Oftentimes they want you to join, to gain access to their members. So that's probably maybe a deal breaker, especially if joining means cost. But at a bare minimum, perhaps we can start to assemble some type of a list. I don't want to call it a database. It sounds too technical. But a distribution list of contacts from various businesses or business organizations that we can start to send some of our marketing content to. We just need to talk about what that marketing content is.
Wouldn't Nancy know some of that stuff too? Just, as part of her other job?
Yeah.
Probably.
I hate to say we would steal, but we would certainly borrow some of the Why Wilmington kind of content from the Chamber of Commerce. At the Chamber of Commerce level, I'm a member of the Chamber, we've spent some time trying to tweak that messaging for our members. Why join the Chamber of Commerce? So that's what the message was to that, but it doesn't have to change a hell of a lot to go to a would-be business and say, why come to Wilmington? Why set up your shop here?
Yeah, again, to your point of not recreating the wheel, I think you'd probably get the bones of the message right there.
Yeah. I agree, Carol. It's a great observation. So, Suzanne, I forget when you came in, but we had unanimously agreed that we were going to take the graphical portion of the survey data, not all the answers, but the word cloud and the graphs, and I'm going to write up a very brief summary of takeaways, and we're going to put that together and put it on the website.
Excellent.
That's happening, as soon as I can get that done in the next few days.
Great. I think that's excellent. Yep.
In terms of first steps, that'll be there. And then I was going to suggest perhaps that I can take a very rough pass at assembling maybe just a cut sheet, a one-pager flyer, for lack of a better word, that talks about the advantages and why a business would want to set up shop here. I have access to some graphics people that I think I can pull on their expertise for free, and I'll make an effort to do that. And so, we'll come to our next session and we'll show the fruits of that, and then we can, chew it up and digest it. And if we ever do find ourselves with financial resources at our disposal, perhaps we can take it to the next step and make something a little more formal, a little more, sorry, Greg, a little more sexy. That would be, professional marketing content. But until then, I think we have the tools to maybe to put our best foot forward with the data we collected. I keep going like that. I'm pointing at the data. With the data that we collected, as well as some of our already knowledgeable sort of outbound content.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I would propose to take a swing at developing that first pass at a marketing piece and present it to you at or before our next meeting, if that's okay with you guys.
Sure.
Yeah, great. Absolutely.
So that's a couple of those goals, I guess. With all due respect, that was bullet number 6 on the agenda. Number 7 is reopening status. I personally don't have an awful lot more. I know that the governor has continued to do press conferences, and we're still in, it's not phase 2 of phase 3, whatever, section 2 of phase 3 or something. Yep. I forget what it is. Nothing really has changed, I think, from the last time we met. So unless anyone has any remarkable observations about the reopening phase or status, we can sort of gloss over that. Valerie, you don't have anything specifically from your perspective, do you, regarding reopening of businesses through the COVID?
No.
Yeah. I did watch the Board of Selectmen last evening, and Shelley Newhouse, the Director of Health, did comment that Wilmington is doing quite well. Massachusetts obviously is doing pretty well, but Wilmington's doing quite well. Generally, the businesses are adhering to the rules that are put upon them, with some nominal, challenges here and there that she's ironing out. So I really compliment our existing business community for working with that system. It's new to everybody, so I know she's a very busy lady, but so far so good. It seems like the reopening here in Wilmington has gone well enough to keep those businesses liquid. And from my perspective, from an experience perspective, I think those that are still in service are doing a very good job. Please, someone chime in if you want to comment. I'm just going through the agenda here because I want to be conscious of time.
Mike, if I could, Mike.
Yes, please, Greg.
You mentioned the Board of Selectmen meeting last night. If anybody wasn't able to see it, one of the important votes we took last night was to, if you'll remember, Mike approached the board early in the summer. Forgive me, it may have been June. Mike, it all blends together, but with the idea of allowing private businesses to use town property. And thanks to you, Mike, and the members of this committee, the Wilmington Dance Company Academy was able to have a recital on the Swain Green, and it was a great success from what I understand. So we're very happy that happened. But last night, the board voted unanimously to extend that until September 14th. So private businesses are still going to be available to reach out to the town manager and apply for use of public property as a way to help them out. And so we thought it was kind of important to extend it as we still have some nice weather here, another couple weeks. I believe it's like 4 weeks left of a business. We can help them out that way. The other quick thing to note was that we approved a second license for a new ice cream truck in town, which I think people are really liking. That was good news.
That is good news. More ice cream. It's we should adjourn right now on ice cream. That would be.
I think they have competition with the Wilmington Police Department right now, though.
Right.
Oh yeah, I heard there. Yeah, it's nearby. My wife came home from work and said there was a fairly congested area of Glen Road, I think, doing the ice cream sales or giveaway.
Oh wow,
that's awesome. Listen, do me a favor, folks, if it's okay with you. Bullet number 8 is discuss and set new goals for the committee for the next 11-month period, basically for the next year. That could be I'm going to promote that to a higher agenda item for our next meeting, because I don't believe we should gloss over it, but I also don't think we can rush it. And we've been 90 minutes, and I really want to try to hold firm to keeping these meetings reasonable here. I also, the reason I'm asking you to do something here is this is a homework assignment. What would your goals be? Write it down and send it to me. If each of you could send just to me what you would see as our committee's goals for the next year, and maybe your personal goals or whatever, what you would like to achieve, what you'd like to see us do over the next 6 months to a year. There's a presumption here that at some point we're talking about COVID in the rearview mirror. So, you know, I would ask you each as a homework assignment to let me know that, and then I'll call it down into a document, and we will have it as an agenda item for our next meeting and go through it and maybe come up with the top 5 or whatever the right number is. Is that a reasonable, do you mind doing that? I think that's a useful way to get us through the goal discussion.
Great idea.
Thank you, Suzanne. And it's a good way for me to dodge that agenda item right now. So thank you for that. New business is number 9, member statements and discussion agenda items for the next future meetings. I just came up with one. So any other agenda items specifically that you guys need to talk about? Certainly we will talk about the survey data being up on the site. We'll talk about site hits and metrics, and we will preview a draft of a marketing piece that I will have. So those are a couple of agenda items that we'll have next month, whenever that is. I will invite David Robertson, again, Representative Robertson, to join us if he has something that he wants to share with us. So that will probably be an agenda item. And we will talk about the goals that we just discussed. Anything else that you, at this time, would like to have to ensure that is on the agenda for next time? Same homework assignment. If you think of something over the next 3 whatever weeks it is, and you go, we should talk about this at economic development, write it down and send it to me. You know, the world is your oyster and this is your committee. So yeah, I'm making these agendas trying to keep the ball rolling forward, but I certainly don't want to leave anything off if there's something that someone is passionate about. We'll find time to put it in. So member statements, anyone want to have the room for a moment? Oh, you're so quiet. Everyone's hungry. Public comments, John?
We currently have no callers, Mr. Chair.
All right. I would invite the public to use the numbers you see on the screen if you feel so inclined. And while you're navigating that process, can we look at our calendars, folks, and discuss a next meeting date? Today is August 18th. We have been on a monthly sort of cycle, which would get me to September 15th, which is a Tuesday. But I'm amenable to what works for the team.
I think the 15th works great.
Fine for me. Fine for me.
Good for me too.
I'm fine with that.
Works for me.
Make it so. John, at some point at your convenience over the next couple of days, if you want to create a Zoom appointment for that and send it to me, I will then disperse to the rest of the committee.
Will do.
Thank you so much. Any public comments? I think anyone that had the desire to have public comments probably has had enough time to dial in. Would everyone agree?
Yes.
Excellent. And so then I think, unless there's anything else, I would accept a motion to adjourn this meeting.
And make a motion to adjourn.
Accepted by Patrick.
Second?
Seconded by Greg. All in favor, going across the top. Greg?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Paul?
Yes.
Lil?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
Robert?
Yes.
Suzanne?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Thank you all very much. God bless you. Stay healthy and
Okay.
safe, and I will look forward to communicating with you over the course of the next few weeks.
Great. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Take care.